Hey, y'all. Welcome to Hillbilly Garage. We're going to do just a tad bit different this evening. We're going to have kind of a sit down thing, kind of like a live. We're just not doing it live. But anyway, me and B, we get communication from people from time to time. And, we've made some really good friends, even some Ford people. Turned out they're pretty good guys. But anyhow, you know what I'm talking about, Cecil. So anyhow, um, people interested in getting their engines fixed up, rebuilt, refreshed. There's a whole nother controversy there. Y'all blow the comments up with that. Everybody has a different definition for that. But generally, let's talk about taking an engine from not the best to closer to the best or better, right? Anyway, so and you ask yourself, well, how much does that cost? Well, there's a lot of factors involved. And, my question that I've been thinking about getting ready for this is what is time worth? Because time is the variable here that it's hard to put it's hard to pin down, right? And any of y'all out there that are more experienced or higher end or whatever else, your time is valuable. Everybody's time is valuable. No matter what it is you do, your time is valuable. Lord, we go to any of us that work for an hourly wage, we go to work. Time is what we're getting paid for, and skill and whatever else. But so you've decided that you want your engine to be better than it was. All right. And you go to the internet and you Google. And I picked three particular ones. And y'all put in the comments what you find in common with these three that I picked. But anyway, uh, I did some Google searches just like everybody else does. Checked Summit, checked eBay, professional engine builders out in California. I like them a lot. I've worked with them. No, they're not sponsors, but they are a great supplier and they have a lot of stuff. So y'all check them out. But what we've come up with is small block Chevy 350. If you look up a re-ring kit for small block Chevy 350, you can find them for about 120 bucks. All right. So if you stop right there and you're like, oh, well, Lord, a re-ring kit. Certainly, my engine's good enough. It runs, but, it's just a little tired. So $120, man, I can fix my motor up good. Yeah, it's a good possibility. But is that all it needs? And then you ask yourself, well, what does a re-ring kit entail? Well, generally, a re-ring kit will get you a gasket set, a set of rings to fit your pistons. You'll get main bearings, rod bearings, front and back seals, and what did I say? The gasket kit. But anyway, so it's kind of basic. Most generally, they don't include cam bearings. They don't include freeze plugs. They don't include valve guide seals. You do not get a timing set. You certainly don't get a water pump, nor plugs, wires. Okay. Now, let's say you figure out that your pistons, you want them replaced. Okay, so we're going from re-ring to rebuild kit. All right, that's how they're shown here, or when you look them up. So rebuild kit run you about 450 bucks. That's what I Googled and got for a small block Chevy, 350. But $450.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, you could probably find them a little bit less, whatever. But anyway, like I said, these are fast searches that I did because that's what, the guy that is going to email me, he's going to look that up after I talk to him and he's going, well, Lord have mercy. So anyhow, let's move on. But again, it comes with pistons and everything that's in a re-ring kit, but you don't get the others down here. All right. Now, that is considering you're going to reuse your cam kit, because re-rings and rebuilds, they generally do not include cam kit. Now, you can get a master rebuild kit. And if you Google that and look it up, what you'll find is it is a regular rebuild kit plus a cam kit. So rebuild for the small block Chevy 350, we're looking at about $750 to $800 for that master kit. And some of those also included oil pump. Not always. And I left this off of here because we're going with the premise today that because oil pumps, they generally don't go bad. You know, it happens, but it's pretty uncommon. So we're gonna reuse our oil pump, even though I don't suggest that. But that's where we're going today with our discussion, right? And then you look over here, and this is the list of others. These come to about $250. But if we're doing re-ring, cam kit, all these other supplies, okay, we're still $670 for a re-ring on small block Chevy 350. That ain't too bad, $670. There's a lot of stuff in there. If you are doing an oil pump, you're adding another $50. All right. No, but if we're doing pistons with all of these others, now we're talking $1,000 for that kit. Still, that's not terrible, right? Yeah, $1,000. You know, we don't all have $1,000, including us, laying around in our pockets. But by golly, if we got to get to work and we need that truck to run, we're going to figure it out, right? Okay, for all you Ford guys, let's move along. We're Googling up them re-rings. The re-rings are $200. Do not include all the others here, right? Cam kits. They're a little bit more expensive. You know, it's funny. You go, Chevy's the cheaper, Ford's in the middle, Dodge is the highest. But anyway, we're moving along. About $350 for that cam kit. $250 roughly for all these others. Okay, so re-ring, we're looking $800. Move down to rebuild, which includes the pistons. $485. Cam kit, $350. The others, $250, $1,085. And again, you can get a master rebuild kit for Fords, and it's the rebuild plus the pistons the pistons, the camshaft, and the oil pump, and you're looking at about $900 to $1,000. All right, so moving along for Mopar guys, which I am partly one, but I love them all. I mean, I do. All right. But anyway, I do like the Magnums, and I like the 5.7 Hemis. We've talked about that. Let's stay on point, right? So we got rear ring kits. We Google it up. $215 for that 360 Magnum, right? Cam kit. The Magnums, they're about $500 for a cam kit. $250 for the others, roughly $965 for re-ring. We got to add in some pistons. Rebuilds $450. $500 cam, others $250. We're talking $1,200. Add in an oil pump. Again, we're adding another $50. Okay, so you Google all this stuff for your favorite engine type, and you call somebody up and you say, "Well, hey, you rebuild this engine for me?" I was like, absolutely, sure. That's what we do. It's what we like to do. But you give them a price, and then they're like, "Well, wait a minute. Whoa, wait a minute. I mean, small block Chevy, if re-ring, $120. Like, what else? What goes on?" And you got to scratch your head and you got to ask yourself, well, first of all, that doesn't include any of this. And if you're not going to change some of these things, I know the old joke, don't look at the cam bearings, they're fine. I don't believe in that. Anybody that watches this channel knows I don't believe in that. We look at them, and when they need change, we change them. Okay? But still, I mean, we're only talking $35, right? Freeze plugs, hey, you need to open them things up. You need to flush all that out, right? And you need to put some new freeze plugs in it. Brass, preferably, which literally it's only like $5 more to go brass rather than steel. And have I used steel? Yes, I have. That's just sometimes it's just the way it is, especially if it's for me. But yeah, I know I should go with the $5. But here's the thing: these are not magnetic, right? So when they fall inside the block, you got to flip the block around, whatever else. If the steel ones fall, I can reach my magnet in there, grab a hold it, pull it out. But anyhow, it's back on point here. So you're looking at these, and then you say, well, you remind them, okay, well, the camshaft, okay, I want to use my camshaft. Okay, well, that's fine. That's good. We'll check it out. We'll inspect it. We'll find out if, it's got a half flat lobe. It's got lifters that, are on their way out, whatever. Okay. But then, like I said, the other stuff, the timing set, the valve guide seals, the water pump, these are kind of things that you really should do when you're freshening something up. All right. Because just sure as all get out, you put that old water pump on, and here's what I've experienced. If you don't soak that thing in antifreeze while you've got it off the engine until you put it back on the engine, you've put it on fired up, that sucker will leak. That's just what I found. That seal, when you take water or coolant off the back side of it, it dries out, and it dries out in a big hurry. So anyway, we start, they're asking, okay, so why so much? Okay, even if we go here, $670. Well, what else is there? And then I'm asking myself, well, how much is time worth? How much? Well, maybe I'll just do it myself. Okay, that's good. I love that, because that's what this channel is mostly about, is taking what I've learned from others and hopefully absorbing it properly, passing it on to someone else, and someone else can use that for their project. I am all in favor of that. I love that. We get comments sometimes of people that have used something we've said to their benefit, and I love it. I mean, if that's the way it is each and every time, I am good. Because if we can help somebody else to save some money somewhere, I'm all about it. All right. But here's the thing. Okay, you're going to do your own. Well, got an engine hoist here. That vehicle, that engine needs to come out of that vehicle.
Yes, walk this way.
I mean, yeah, we could do an in-frame, I guess, but
this engine right here is not light, guys. Got
as a matter of fact, Joe, that Magnum engine, I tried to hang it on one of my cheaper stands, and she sagged. She sagged pretty bad. So I had to actually buy a better stand to hang the Magnums on. Because
how much do you think they weigh?
Oh, I have no clue. But I can hang a small block Chevy on a cheaper stand, and it'll do fine. But you hang a Hemi or a Magnum on a cheaper stand, and she'll sag. It's just the way it is. So anyway, but in order to pick that baby up out of the vehicle, we got to have a hoist of some sort. All right. This one right here cost me $250 when I bought it. But here's what I'll tell you. It would not reach the Hemi. It wouldn't pull it out of the white truck, and it wouldn't pull it out of the red truck. I could not get enough extension out of it in order to get there. So, well, I got to take, but I added 10 inches to this arm. And then I had to restructure it to make it strong so that it would pick the Magnums and the Hemis up. And when I did that, I got my weight out in front of my front wheels. So I had to extend the legs on my stand to make it safe. All right. So really, it didn't really cost me a lot because I did all that myself. But a hoist that is long enough and sturdy enough to pick those up is more like a $350 hoist. All right, this is a 2,000 pound, but you actually need a 3,000 pound. Anyway, moving on. Well, when you get it out of there, then we got to have something to put it on. I like the Harbor Freight $100 stands. They're
Like
good and
this one?
sturdy. That's what that one is, the Pittsburgh. It's a good investment if you've got any kind of engine because you have this thicker plate right here, and it'll hold a Hemi, it'll hold a Magnum, it'll hold them all. That's a good deal right there. Um, like I said, this one I bought, tried a Magnum on it. It sagged. I had to straighten it, fix it, so now I only use it for small block Chevys. This thing's got to come apart and it's got to come out, and you got to have some basic tools. Yes, you can do every bit of this with hand tools, and for the majority of it, we do most of it with hand tools. I do use power to make things a little bit faster, but and I know a lot of y'all gonna laugh about this number. Okay, even when I wrote it and B typed it, I laughed. $200 basic tool set. Okay, that's Harbor Freight. That's the one that comes in the plastic box, you know. And I don't actually have one, but I did buy one that I keep in a red truck, paid $200 for it, and it's a pretty good set. I think I could do most engine repairs out of it. But anyway, $200. And I'm not bragging. I know you're going to think, but I got more than $200 sitting in any one table anywhere in the shop. Okay, I'm not bragging. Okay, but tools are not cheap. Okay, so when we get this thing apart, we got to have some cleaning brushes because you got to clean these things. If you want to take one from that right here, B, from that to this, there's some cleaning involved. This motor, when we first got it, y'all go back and look at the video where B tore. This is the one B tore apart. Had the cracked piston. There was oil slobbering all down the side of it, all over it. It was dirtier than that. So, and no, you don't have to clean one in order to get your truck going so you can go to work. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is it's a process to get from there to here, right? So we got to have some cleaning brushes, got to have some cleaning fluids and whatever. Okay, we're going to need either a ball hone or a 3-stone, because no, I don't think there's anything wrong with a ball hone as long as the cylinders are straight. Now, I will tell you, if you don't have any tools for measuring that, you ain't going to know whether it's straight or not. But that might be where a 3-stone might benefit you, because you can get a better idea what kind of condition your cylinders are in with a 3-stone. Turn it a few times and it'll show you high and low spots. But that's up to you. Like I said, I use ball hone. I don't have any problem with it. You're gonna need some feeler gauges because you got a little bit of measuring you got to do. You're gonna need a harmonic dampener tool. Got that one pretty cheap. You're gonna need a dial indicator. And he's like, well, what do I need that for? Well, there's a couple things. You got to measure thrust. You got to know whether you got proper thrust. You throw a set of bearings in this thing, you don't know whether you got thrust or not. You could have problems. 3-jaw puller. You got to get the crank. You got to get the cam gear off of the front of the crank. Valve spring tool. Got to tell if you're gonna take them heads apart and clean them and put some valve guide seals in them, you got to be able to do that. You're gonna need a ring compressor, put it together. Now, I did find a torque wrench set online. I Googled it from Vevor. Had 3 torque wrenches. $60. Don't think there's a thing wrong with that. I have Harbor Freight. There they are, the 2 little ones. Okay. Cam bearing tool. You guys on the channel have seen that of mine. I paid $60 for it. I've used it many times. Gonna need some plastic gauge. Now here we go. Oh, plastic gauge don't work. Yes, plastic gauge is fine. If you're doing your own, you're fixing that vehicle to get you to work, plastic gauge will tell you what you need to know. No, it will not tell you down to the 10,000s. Nobody says it will. But it will tell you if you have a oil clearance that is sufficient for your engine to run properly. It'll tell you that, or it will tell you if it's too tight and you need to make an adjustment. Okay? And then you're going to need the building and the cleaning supplies. And you see this number 200. This is per engine. You need brake clean. You need oven cleaner. You need Dawn dishwashing liquid. You need paper towels. You need you need valve lapping compound. You need assembly lube. You need RTV. There's just all kinds of stuff. And it's just going to be about $200, 150 to 200 per engine. All right, in order to make sure things are right. Okay, so for tools and supplies, all right, we're talking about $1,100. And no, that's not per job, but this is what is basically needed. Maybe there's a few of them you could get away with. I really wouldn't suggest it, but this is where you need to be in order to do a good job on rebuilding your engine. All right, you kind of just got to be there. Now, granted, many of these things you can go down to your local big box parts nationwide store, and they have loan a tool programs. And yes, that's a great way. You can pick them up. You got to pay, well, actually what you pay for it, and then you return it and get your money back. You can do that.
But you still have to pay for it up front.
But yeah, you got to lay it out, and you could do one at a time. It's a little bit hard, but anyway, you can work that out. But then some of them, and maybe you got a buddy's got an engine hoist that'll loan it to you. That works good. Maybe you got a buddy's got an engine stand. They don't have nothing on. That's good too. I mean, there's variances here, but what we're talking about is when you talk to that person and say, "Hey, I'd like for you to rebuild my engine." They give you a number, and then your jaw hits the floor, and you're like, "Wait a minute, what?" But I could get a rear end kit for $120. A whole lot more goes into it. All right. So, and here's what we're talking about. We're going to start this deal. Well, first thing we really need to do is pull that thing out, right? So that's what we need our hoist for. Then we need to hang it on that engine stand, because rolling it around on the floor or on a table, I don't particularly care for that process. I know a lot of people do put them on tables and work them that way. I don't know. This seems way easier to me. Okay. First thing we got to do is clean that bad boy. That's where some of these supplies come in. We put some kind of cleaner, degreaser. Oven cleaner works great. If you got a pressure washer, that's good. If you got a good hose that's got good pressure, that'll work too. Knock some of that road dirt off of that thing. All right. B showed you that 360 over there. It hasn't had its first bath, and it's not terrible, but it's still dirty. All right. And then as you're taking things apart, all the dirt that's on the outside is going to fall to the inside. So that's just more clean.
And then if you haven't changed your oil in a while, you're going to have old, musty, crusty, black soot.
And you guys can go back and you can look at Sludge Monster. Look up Sludge Monster in our playlist, and you can see just how bad that can really get.
And Sludge Monster took more than one cleaning to get all that sludge out.
Besides all the manual scraping that we did, if I remember, it's been a while, but I think that motor got 6 baths before I finally got it clean enough to where I was okay with it.
And then you need to put WD-40 on it so it doesn't flash rust after you wash it.
Part of your supplies. Got to keep that WD-40 on this open metal once you clean it, all right? So let's move along. So then when we get some of that outside dirt, we're going to take her apart where your hand tools come in. Then we're going to knock out them cam bearings. That's where your cam bearing tool comes in. Then it's time for that second cleaning and inspection and cleaning all them oil passages. That's where your cleaning brushes come in. All right, get all that cleaned up, inspect all the parts. Once they're clean, you can get a really good look at them, and you can determine, okay, I don't have any ring ridge. I don't find any cracks, breaks. Okay, so we can move forward with this project, right? So then we want to clean and polish that crankshaft up because we don't want to put new bearings up against, dirty crank. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with a crank that's dirty, but you can't tell if there's imperfections in it. I got the cranks put away.
There's some right here. I could go just look.
Here's a good example right here. This is out of 5.7 Hemi, old school, pre-Eagle. And you can see the journals on this thing, they are fine. They're nice. But they're dirty. There's an oil ring. They need cleaned, they need polished up. Is that a salvageable crankshaft? Yes, it is. Am I going to put new bearings again in that dirty journal? No, I'm not. You can, I guess, but I'm not. I mean, and you can find crank polishing videos also back in our playlist. But anyway, let's move on. Then we're going to take our ball hone or our 3-stone, and we're going to hone on our cleaned up cylinders and make sure that we like the surfaces, make sure we don't find any cracks or any imperfections. All right, and then we're going to clean out our lifter bores to make sure that when we put clean new lifters in there, they're going to slide, and if you're doing flat tappet, that they're going to rotate. We're going to clean all these deck surfaces, so when we put new gaskets on there, we feel really good about. Now this one's been hit, but it needs hit again. And you can see, now this is a machine surface. Don't get me wrong, I didn't clean it to this. That was decked. But then this surface looks pretty good, but it needs cleaned because we want to put a fresh gasket on it, and we want to make sure that it's going to seal right. All right. So then it's time to start working on moving towards getting things back in the going together direction. First thing I like to check my thrust clearance on my main bearings. So we're going to put our main bearings in. We're going to lay our crankshaft in. And on the small block Chevy, your thrust bearing is going to be here. So we're going to put it, lay the crank in there, start our thrust bearing in there. And that's where the dial indicator comes in. We're going to put it here on the snout of our crankshaft. We're going to move this back and forth and make sure that we have a little bit of free play, not too much. You need to check the specs for your particular brand of vehicle, but the spec on small block Chevy is from 3 to 11 thousandths. I like 5 thousandths. That gives me 2.5 thousandths each side for an oil wedge, hydraulic wedge. And I think that's enough to make sure oil stays in there, but also thin enough for that hydraulic wedge that should keep the crankshaft from making contact. At least we hope. Anyway. So then we're going to also check the oil clearances on our main bearings to make sure that we have approximately 2.5 thousandths, from 2.5 to 2 3/4, or in this particular one, our biggest one was 2.9. And we can do that with plastic gauge. Now you can't find 2.9 with plastic gauge. Obviously I used the bore gauge on that, but if I did a plastic gauge check and I opened it up and I compared my paper to it, I need glasses because I can't see. Yes, I have plastic gauge in my toolbox. Me and Steve Tackett were talking about that. So if I get a stripe about like this green one right here, that's 2,000 clearance, and that's good. If I get one that's more closer to this, it's getting a little too tight. If it's a little bit smaller than this one, then you might be okay. But if you get out here to a little old thin one like this one, you're getting towards the outside of what's acceptable. Okay. And with Plastigauge, you can tell, do I need extra clearance bearings or do I need undersized bearings? Because if you get into either one of these whites, then that's something you need to consider. You stay in that green, and you're in good shape. Okay? So we're going to get our oil clearances checked out. When we like them, we're going to go ahead and get that crankshaft installed with our rear main seal. We're going to torque down them caps. And then we're going to start checking piston rings. Just so happened, I happened to throw a piston ring in this one last night. Put your piston ring down in there. Use a piston for a squaring tool. Take that feeler gauge we talked about and check and see what kind of clearance you have on that gap. And this one actually has 17. I like 18, especially because the rule of thumb is 4 thousandths per inch of bore. Well, this is a 4030 block now. So you multiply 4030 times 0.004 and you come up with 0.01612, which is bigger than 16, which everybody says is the rule of thumb on a small block Chevy. So bigger than 16 means you go to 17, because I don't have feeler gauges that are half, 10 thousandths, whatever. So anyway, we need at least 17, but like I said, I like 18. Top ring, I like 20 second ring. But you got to do you, all right? But it doesn't matter what you like, you're going to have a feeler gauge in order to be able to tell that, all right? So when we get our piston ring gaps the way we like them, and incidentally, on the oil rails, you just need to make sure that they don't touch in the bore, and also make sure that the expander is not scrunched against itself when it's in there. So anyway, on to what we're doing. And then we're going to install those rings, and we're going to take the ring compressor that we had to have, and we're going to start installing some cylinders in there. And then as we do that, before we lubricate anything, we're going to get us some more Plastigauge. We're going to check our oil clearances on our rod bearings. As we get them joined up to the journals. Check them dry, a little Plastigauge, make sure we're getting the kind of clearances we like. And remember, if you're going to do that one at a time, make sure when you clean the Plastigauge off from checking this first journal, go ahead and lubricate those bearings before you put it back together. So that way when you move it to the next one, you're not dragging it dry. But anyway, so we're going to find all those, make sure we like all those, and then we're going to torque our caps down with our torque wrenches, right? Then, of course, once we get the connecting rods all torqued down, then we can go ahead and mount our oil pump, get it torqued down. If you are reusing your old one, I strongly recommend that you take it apart and clean it and deburr it and all that. And even if you get a new one, I even more recommend you do that, because if you take a brand new pump, take it apart, bang it on a table, lots of times you'll get metal shavings out of it. So make sure you check that, install it, put it down, or torque it down. All right, now it's time to start working on the heads. All right, we got to take them heads, we got to take that spring compressor, and we got to tear them apart.
Which one is this for? Is this the Ford?
That's the Ford heads, yep.
Well,
I have not done those yet. You can see what they look like beforehand. And then after you do your cleaning, clean the back sides of your valves, clean your castings. And when you put them back together, they're going to look a whole lot better. New valve seals and everything. Of course, you got to have that spring compressor.
Yeah, because you're not going to get those springs off with your bare hand, or you might be on your way to the emergency room.
There are ways you can take a socket, you can beat on those retainers and pop those keepers out, but then you still got to put them back. So you got to consider all that. But anyway, we're going to clean them all up. We're going to make sure that the back sides of the valves are good. We're going to lap the valves in with lapping compound. Put in our new valve guide seals, and then we're going to reassemble them. All right. Now we need to make sure we get cam bearings back in here before we move any further. That's what we need our cam bearing tool again for. And look those videos up also on the channel. And then when we got those the way we like it, we're going to lube up the camshaft. And we're going to ease it in there, whether we're reusing the old one or we're going with the new one that we bought. All right, and then once we get our cam in, then we can drop our lifters in and make sure that those are all lubed up and turn freely if we're using flat tappet, or slide freely if you're using rollers, which is entirely up to you. All right, and then we can go ahead and we can get our head gaskets out. We can lay our heads up on here and get those installed, torqued down properly. And then, of course, we need to put our timing cover on.
Valve train.
Well, yeah, and reinstall the valve train components, your rockers, your push rods, and all that up here. Timing cover. A lot of people recommend put your timing cover up here loosely with all your bolts started, and then put your damper on, which I didn't get that tool out, but you'll need the opposite tool, not the puller but the installer, because please don't beat those things on there with a hammer, people. Or a block of wood. Just go down to your local big box and rent one of their damper installers and press it on there. But if you do that, in the new seal that's in your front cover that came in your kit, and then you wait to tighten your bolts down, then your damper will actually center your cover. Even though they are on dowel pins, they will move just a hair. All right. And then put on your oil pan, put on your intake manifold, put on your valve covers. Okay, we've got this thing to a point now. It's all torqued down, put all together. Everything's looking pretty and sharp. If you painted it, good. If not, that's okay. It doesn't affect the way it runs. It's time to put this baby back in the vehicle. All right, we get her set back in there. We get our motor mounts back in. We get her start hooking everything up. Radiator. Need to put oil in it. Oil filter, coolant, distributor, carburetor. And if we went flat tappet, we got to do a break-in on camshaft. All right. So that's a pretty good list, right, of things. And yeah, we talked about it over a few minutes, but there's a lot of steps. There's a lot of work involved in it, a lot of hand work, especially all the cleaning. Yeah, you can get them hot tanked and you can get them pressure washed and all that, and it's all great. It's perfect. If you have a shop nearby that's got a hot tank and a jet washer, I strongly recommend have them run it through it. Of course, it's going to cost you a little bit.
But also, with the machine shop, we go back to that word we like called time.
Yeah, when the engine is out of your shop and at the machine shop, then there's time. But then there's also money that you have to pay to the machine shop for whatever process that you need, and there's always big arguments on some of those Facebook pages. Somebody says, well, I'd like to rebuild my engine. What do you think? And then there's like 14 million people. Take it to the machine shop. Take it to the machine shop. Well, if it needs to go to the machine shop, I'm 100% for it. I fully agree. But you don't know until you get it inspected. Clean it, tear it apart, see what it needs. This one, it went to the machine shop. I had it bored and I had it decked because it needed it. It had a pretty bad ring ridge to it. And the deck surfaces were really not bad, but I just wanted a little bit off of them to kind of boost compression just a little bit. That one I have not measured. I think it does have ring ridge though. It does. So I'll take it and have it bored and decked. Just, But there are plenty of ones that's been through here, especially the newer fuel injected Vortec motors. If they didn't delete their O2 sensors and the computer ran the engine pretty good, most of the time I found them they didn't have any ring ridge, and the cylinders were fine. And we run a ball home through them, and we cleaned them up, and we put pistons back in them. But anyway, so what is all this worth? I mean, a lot of stuff going on here. And all this stuff is labor. Doing these engines is pretty labor intensive, especially for me because I don't have a lot of the equipment that some shops have that help to automate some of these things. But that's okay. I mean, that's the way I like it. That's the way we do it. All right. But if you look up online, engine rebuild, book hours, or how many hours does it take, and there's literally the numbers I found were anywhere from 20 hours to 80. All right. But I just kind of close up that window a little bit. And we're saying from 25 to 40. And, really the only difference in these kits basically is the pistons. Now, again, if you got press pin pistons, you got to take those to a machine shop so that they can press the old pins out, heat up the rods, put in the new pins, unless you have that torch and you want to do it, but I don't want to. But anyhow, so, and if you call around to some of the shops, and I've done a little bit of checking here, not real hard, but I have found that $90 an hour is the average around here. All right. And basically it goes from 80 to 105, roughly. All right. But I just picked 90 because 90 makes it easy. Okay. But we're running on two different ends of the spectrum here. That super sweet deal, that your buddy's only going to charge you a little bit. But what does he deserve? I mean, he deserves something for his time, right? So I picked $50. Maybe, I don't know. But anyway, we had to have some numbers. But here we go. If we were to say 20 hours at $50 an hour, or actually, I'm sorry, it should have been 25. But anyway, 1,000 to 1,250 in labor alone for the smallest end of one of these things, right? I mean, it's easy to burn up 20, 25 hours tearing it apart, cleaning it, pressure washing it, you know what I mean? 20 hours goes by fast.
And that's a garage that does engine work.
Well, yeah, this is like your buddy that got his own little shop, and this is more like a full service garage that, you're going to take it to, right? So you go down there for that full rebuild or that full service place, 25 hours, $90 an hour, that's $22.50 in labor. Okay? We're not talking about any of this. We're talking about labor. Then you see here, I got 30 at the 50, 1,500, 30 at the 90, 2,700, 40 at the 50, $2,000, 40 at the 90, $3,600. Okay? So we're looking at basically a window of $1,250 to $3,600, depending upon the level of the build and, the intensity and how much all has to be done. All right. Again, I can't stress this enough. That's just the labor. That doesn't include this $120 for the rear end kit, because you got to tack that on for the $1,250, but then you also got to tack on the other, and then you got to give some value to the shop's tools and equipment and whatever. So When you look up online that $120 re-ring kit for that small block Chevy and you don't consider anything else, and then somebody gives you a price and you hit the floor, well, this is more indicative to including some of this shop labor here, right? You know, your buddy's shop or, you know, the full on shop, right? So you take that 350 down there and the kit for all the stuff, including the others, is $670. The value of their tools, their shop, and you know they got power bills and they got all that kind of stuff. You know, we're just throwing a number out here, and it's way low because remember this basic tool set, $200. You know, we're all laughing at that, but we're putting a value on this for this purpose, 1,100. The labor, we're hitting in the middle of the ballpark here, about $2,000. So that small block Chevy re-ring, $3,770. You know, and this is the number that the draws are dropping. Like, wait a minute, what? I don't understand. Why? I'll just do it myself. Well, okay, that's good. We hope you do, right? I'd love to see people doing it. But there's going to be value in here, right? Your time, just because you don't charge yourself your time is valuable, right? But when you do it yourself, all you get is to pat yourself on the back and say, look what I did, which I encourage that. I want people to be proud of that. I'm proud of when I do something, right? I love doing this stuff, okay? But anyway, back to our deal. Okay, we throw the pistons in on this kit. So now we're at 1,000 plus the value of the shop, the tools, the electric bill, the whole whatnot. The labor, the more intensive, $3,000, $5,100, right? The Ford, you can see where it goes through. We've given the same values to the labor and all the other stuff. 3,900 re-ring, 5,185 rebuild. Magnum 360, 4,065 re-ring, $5,300 for rebuild. All right. So my point, and I've really labored long and hard. We've had this idea for a really, really long time. We have. And I am not trying to say anything negative about anybody or anything. All right. And again, I want to stress the fact that if you can learn something from us, which I have learned from others, and I'm only passing it along, and you want to take on your job, then I am all for it. If you want to reach out to me and ask me for a question or for advice or whatever, feel free. Reach out. I will share whatever it is I can that might help you. And if I don't know the answer, I know people that do. And I will find you the proper information to get you where you need to be. You can borrow tools from your local big box store, your buddy down the street. Yes, I strongly encourage it. But when you come to the point where you either say, I don't have the place to do it, I don't have all the tools, I don't have the time, I just don't want to do it. You know, I'd really rather somebody else do it. Well, when they give you a price, trust that, you know, there are other circumstances that are involved in the price that they gave you besides that $120 re-ring kit. That is like that's the cornerstone. Actually, this is the cornerstone. But you got to build on it. And it just depends on where it is. And until you actually take it apart, clean it, inspect it, measure it, you don't know where you are. Or you can't see ring ridge with the heads on it.
This one had a cracked piston, and we didn't even know until
it did. It had
you couldn't
cracked
fit.
piston.
Nothing else was making sense.
And thank you to Brian Salter Racing Engines. You know, I asked him, like I said, when I have questions, I ask people that are better than me because I don't want to make a mistake. But anyway, I asked Brian, and Brian gave me that idea. We checked it out. Sure enough, it had a cracked piston.
Now, what'll happen if you put a cracked piston back in an engine?
Well, at the very least, it's going to leak oil because when the crack opens up, the oil control is lost, and that's what was happening with this one. It was puking oil underneath the exhaust manifold because it was coming out, through the exhaust. Of course, that means it was also smoking a little bit. But on the worst end, that piston comes apart and catastrophic damage and totally destroys your engine, busts the block, completely ruins it. Like I said, though, but you're not going to be able to find any of this stuff until you get it apart, until you get it clean. All right? I can't tell you if there's anything wrong with that 360. I haven't turned a single bolt on it yet. I don't know. And I won't know until I take it apart. All right? Now, I can tell you on this Ford, this thing is in really good shape. Yes, it's dirty, and we will clean it up. But so far, I have not found any major damage. Deck needed to be resurfaced because it was a little bit untrue, but not bad.
And the ones that we've had where the had a spun bearing, it also bent the crankshaft.
Yes, we've had spun bearings, which first of all destroyed the crankshaft to start with, and second of all, some of them were bent, which also means that they're pretty much junk. Yes, you can have a crankshaft straightened, but it's an expensive deal. For the most part, replacing a crankshaft and repairing a crankshaft is pretty much the same money. So it's kind of not really worth it to try to salvage a crankshaft when you can buy a replacement for what it's going to cost to fix it. But like I said, I know this is long-winded, and I hope that many of you have stayed in for the ride. I just want you to keep in mind that when it's time for you to redo that engine, whatever level that engine might need, that when you decide it's not something you want to take on and you go to someone else, then they're going to have a price. And it's not going to be $120 for a rear end kit. It's just not. Because their time is valuable. Just like your time is valuable. This is the money that you will save yourself if you do it yourself. Because the parts still have to be replaced. All right? Now keep in mind this other list. This is the one that really throws people. Yes, you can reuse your spark plugs, but I really don't recommend it. Plug wires. Let's put some new plug wires. We're going to go through all this trouble. Let's replace the plug wires. Okay? But anyway, this is the stuff that gets missed when you Google that. And this is the stuff you don't think about until you go to tear this thing apart. All that has value. And I strongly encourage each and every one of you to take on these projects. I'm not going to say they're easy, but it's nothing that you can't handle with a little bit of help, a little bit of training, we all go to YouTube school about all different kinds of things, right? We all learn how to program our televisions and our DVRs through Google. And there's information that you can find about tearing these apart, cleaning them up, inspecting them, putting them back together, and making a solid engine. But when you get to the point where you do not want to fool with that, and you go to somebody else, be prepared to value their costs, because it's going to be more. But, and when you're talking basic street rebuilds, that's what we're talking about, right? Now you start talking about high-end race car, drag racing, 500 horsepower, these numbers, they go right out the window.
Yeah.
Because there is a huge difference between a 300 horsepower street motor that you can build with off-the-shelf parts and a 500 horsepower street and strip motor, which is low end. They're miles and miles apart. And then when you start talking 1,000 horsepower, bring your checkbook. That's all I can tell you. All right. But it depends on where you want to be and where you want to end up. And if it's that motor that runs that truck that takes you back and forth to work, I feel 100% confident it's worth fixing. And I also feel confident that you can clean it up and put a set of rings in it and some bearings and drive her back to work. But like I said, so be kind to the people you talk to when you talk about rebuilding an engine. We want to say thank you to each and every one of you. We love all of our subscribers, the newest to the oldest. The numbers are going up by the day, and we appreciate all of you. We do ask that you like, share, and subscribe. We ask that you go to hillbillygarage1215.biz and get your Hillbilly Garage t-shirts, tools, stickers. If you want to send us a postcard from any of y'all that are from wherever you're watching, it's P.O. Box 1, because Hillbilly Garage is number 1 in your heart. P.O. Box 1, Cottageville, West Virginia, 25239. If you're interested in any services that we have, you can also communicate through hillbillygarage1215.biz for that, or you can send us an email, or you can reach out to us through Messenger at RandBenginerevival on Facebook. And reach out to us. Throw the comments in, because you know how much I love those. And let's get some conversations going. And we'll see y'all. Bye.